A very good afternoon to you all. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer McConnell. Our first story is going to come from Uganda as the death toll from the devastating garbage dump landslide in Kampala has now reached 30, following the recovery of 6 additional bodies on Wednesday. Rescue teams are working tirelessly at the scene, where at least 39 people are still remaining missing. In response, President Yoweri Museveni has called for a thorough investigation directed to the evacuation of the residents from the dangerous areas.
Yesterday, we had few earth-moving equipment, but that has been doubled. The earth.
The United States initiated peace talks aimed at ending Sudan's 16 months of war, which began in Switzerland on Wednesday, with the Sudanese military choosing to boycott the discussions. The conflict has led to the world's largest humanitarian crisis, with tens of thousands of them dead and over 10 million people being displaced. More than a half of Sudan's population now faces acute hunger, while famine was declared in the Darfur region earlier this month, highlighting the urgent need for effective solutions. The negotiation seeks to establish a ceasefire and improve humanitarian access and create a monitoring mechanism. United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, has reported that 76% of the population, or more than 9 million people in South Sudan, require urgent humanitarian protection and assistance. This was highlighted during a recent briefing to the UN Security Council by Edem Wasonu, the OCHA's Director of Operations and Advocacy. WHO underlined the dire situation facing the country due to a combination of food insecurity, climate changes, and the ongoing conflict, particularly exacerbated by the crisis in the neighboring Sudan.
As we speak, more than 9 million people, or 76% of South Sudan's population, require humanitarian protection and assistance. Of them, 54% are children, 27% women. A total of 7.1 million people are acutely food insecure, an increase of around 1.5 million people since last year. In the first half of this year, more than 2.6 million. South Sudan is the country worst hit by the displacement crisis caused by the conflict next door, after Chad. Almost 780,000 people have fled to South Sudan since the conflict began on 15 April 2023. More than 580,000 of this number are South Sudanese returnees. Many are arriving also in areas already deprioritized for assistance. They are often malnourished, in poor physical condition, and require life-saving assistance. So the Council, despite the challenges in South Sudan, I'm pleased to note
the United States is deeply grateful for the courageous dedication of UNMISS military, police, and civilian personnel working to protect the people of South Sudan and advance an inclusive political process for all, to provide more robust support to this effort. The United States, along with many other diplomatic missions, is deeply concerned that if passed into law, provisions of the National Security Service Act threaten to further erode the country's political and civic environment. By allowing arrests without warrant, the NSS Act would curtail freedom of expression, and we urge the transitional government to reconsider.
Holding elections will be an important milestone in South Sudan's transition process. Therefore, Japan hopes that preparations for the elections will be appropriately conducted. The humanitarian situation has been worsened by prolonged intercommunal. Japan urges.
In a landmark decision, a Ugandan court has convicted Thomas Koyelo, a commander in the notorious Lord's Resistance Army LRA, of war crimes. Koyelo has been found guilty of 44 charges and crimes against humanity by the Ugandan court. This being the first historic verdict, an LRA commander has been tried and convicted by Uganda's judiciary for war crimes. Irene Njuguna with a full report.
Thomas Koyelo, a former commander of the Lord's Resistance Army, has been convicted of 44 crimes against humanity. The verdict, delivered by Judge Michael Ilubu at the International Crimes Division of the High Court in Ngolo, marks a significant moment in Uganda's effort to address war crimes.
Found guilty on 44 of the charged counts.
Koyelo faced charges including murder, rape, torture, and abduction related to the LRA's brutal insurgency from 1992 to 2005. The trial was notable as it was the first time a senior LRA member has been tried by Uganda's Specialized Court for International Crimes. Koyelo, who was abducted by the LRA as a child, had always denied the charges, claiming he was forced into the group and could not be held responsible for its crimes. Koyelo's conviction comes after a long and controversial legal process reflecting Uganda's struggle to deliver justice for the victims of the LRA's terror. The court's decision is seen as a significant step in the country's ongoing efforts to address the horrors of its past. Irene Njuguna, GBS.
The World Health Organization WHO has raised the alarm of the Mpox outbreaks, with the disease spreading to more than a dozen countries. The situation particularly dire in Congo, where most of the cases and the deaths have been reported, spreading to the neighboring countries in Africa. The Africa Centers for Disease and Control Prevention, CDC, is calling for international assistance to combat the virus, with the World Health Organization on Wednesday declaring Mpox as a global public health emergency for the second time in 2 weeks.
World Health Organization has announced a global emergency due to the ongoing Mpox outbreaks in Africa. Mpox, also known as monkeypox, has been confirmed in over 13 countries this year, with the majority of cases and deaths occurring in Congo. Currently, there are more than 14,000 cases reported and 524 deaths. The number of cases has risen by 160% and deaths by 19% compared to last year. Dimi Ogana, chair of the Mpox Emergency Community, noted that the new cases have been identified in countries like Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Kenya, places where the diseases was previously uncommon.
Evidently, the fact that the new clade that is sexually transmissible has spread to other African countries, and before now, these African countries have never reported a single case of Mpox, including Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya. So we believe that it's already a risk for international spread, and of course, there is also the chance that it could spread beyond Africa to other regions of the world.
The Africa CDC is urgently requesting international support to stop the virus spread. The World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom emphasized that this situation should be a global concern due to the potential for further spread beyond Africa.
The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying.
During the 2022 global Mpox outbreak, fewer than 1% of those infected died. However, the current situation in Africa is much more severe. Irene Njuguna, GBS News.
In the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, the people of Gaza have endured immense suffering. Recent airstrikes have decimated entire families, leaving children orphaned and communities in mourning. In the Gaza Strip near Khan Yunis, a 3-month-old Reem Abu Haya was the sole survivor of an airstrike that killed her parents, 5 siblings, and the parents of the other 3 children. Joy Kuria with the ordeal.
In Gaza Strip, 3-month-old Rem Abu Haya was sole survivor from an airstrike that killed her parent. Rem's aunt, Soyud Abu Haya, reports challenges in feeding the baby, who must now adjust from breastfeeding to formula milk. The emotional and physical toll on Rem is immense. In a separate incident, Mohammed Abul Yomasan lost his wife and their 4-day-old twins when the shelter in Deir al-Baha was bombed.
My wife gave birth the day before yesterday. I didn't even have the time to celebrate them.
The ongoing conflict, now over 10 months old, has resulted in widespread devastation. With the number of orphans rising, local doctors have begun using the term wounded child, no surviving family, to describe the growing crisis. The United Nations estimate that around 17,000 children in Gaza have been orphaned, a figure that has likely increased. The military assert that efforts are made to avoid civilian casualties, blaming Hamas for operating in densely populated areas. However, the frequent strike often results in significant civilian loss. Gaza's health ministry reports that nearly 40,000 Palestinians dead since the conflict began, contrasting with the 1,200 people killed in the initial Hamas attack on Israel that triggered the war. Reporting for GBS News, Joy Korea.
Iran has firmly rejected calls from 3 European nations, Britain, France, and Germany, urging it to refrain from retaliatory attacks on Israel following the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas, in Tehran last month. Iranian officials described the request as excessive and lacking in political rationale, asserting that it contradicts the international law principles. Nasser Kanani, the spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry, emphasized that Iran is determined to uphold its rights without needing external authorization for any retaliation. Peres Kigo gives us the report.
Mediators have spent months trying to get the side to agree to a 3-phase plan in which Hamas would release the remaining hostages captured in its October 7 attack in exchange for Palestinians imprisoned by Israel, and Israel would withdraw from Gaza. After more than 10 months of fighting, the Palestinian death toll is nearing 40,000 in Gaza. Several United Nations Security Council members clamored Tuesday for a Gaza ceasefire deal to be sealed, with negotiations set to resume this week. But the Council, which voted in June to embrace a United States proposal for a ceasefire, took no further action at Tuesday's emergency meeting on Israel's deadly wicked airstrike on a school-town shelter in Gaza. The United States, Egypt, and Qatar have been trying to get Israel and Palestinian military group Hamas to sign on to the 3-phase plan. Security Council members voiced a range of concern and condemnation about the attack. But Palestinian ambassador Riyad Mansour called on them to respond to Israel's military campaign sanctions, not just by words. Peskego, GPS News.
Now moving on to Ivory Coast, preparations are underway for the potential meeting between Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and former President Laurent Gbagbo, who now leads the African People's Party, as Ivory Coast approaches its presidential elections arranged for October 2025. Several opposition leaders are recently called for the electoral reforms and inclusive political dialogue. The Independent Electoral Commission has announced a review of the electoral register from September 30th to October 31st, a timeline criticized by the opposition coalition as insufficient, with their demands being a postponement of the review process until July 2025. This marks the first time the two leaders may be meeting since 2022. And that international news brings us to our very first break. We have more lined up for you shortly after the break. Topics you can't afford to miss. Don't move an inch. We'll be right back with even more as you stay tuned with us.
So through the 4 gospel books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, we can know the heart of Jesus in depth.
그리고 우리가 느끼는 그 예수님을 성경을 통해 느낄 수 있어서 너무 감사합니다.
And the Jesus that we can feel him through the scriptures, and I'm very thankful about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our sins.
지셨고,
he carried our sins.
십자가에 못 박혀 죽어 죄의 형벌을 당하셨고,
and he was crucified and he received the punishment for sins.
무덤에 들어가셨다가,
and he was put into the tomb.
사흘 만에 부활하셨습니다.
and resurrected in 3 days.
이것이 우리가 말하는 복음입니다.
This is the gospel that we speak.
예수님께 우리 죄를 위해 죽으신 이야기.
About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being
우리
crucified.
죄를 담당하기 위하여 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으셨습니다.
He was crucified to pay for our sins.
예수 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으심으로 우리 죄가 분명히 씻어졌는데
And through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean.
참 안타깝게도 많은 사람은 여전히 죄인이라고 말합니다.
However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
What is full of holes but still holds water? What is full of holes but still holds water? Maswali fupi fupi pale kwa SMS line at 21144. Now kama kawaida, we have a short art clip for you guys. Check this out.
I'm Lulu Amboy. I'm a visual artist as well as jewelry making.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did it come mkaanza sasa LM Creations?
It was his idea.
Oh, it was your idea?
Yeah.
Okay, alafu ukamuingiza. So ulianzaje ndo, first of all, LM inamaanisha nini?
Because I'm also a part-time art teacher.
Oh.
Nafanyanga, so I was looking for something easier. So that's why nilikwamia na resin.
Oh, and they're actually very beautiful.
Challenge.
Art yenyewe inani-inspire.
Inaku-inspire.
Yeah, nikiwa nafanya art kuna ile stand naonanga niko nayo. Hiyo ni inspiration moja inanipatia, inafanya inani-drive.
So nitaanza na Lulu. Okay. What is the best Wi-Fi name you've ever seen in your entire life? What is the weirdest thing you've ever seen a stranger do in public?
Hey.
Umeona mambo.
Everywhere, GBS.
What is full of holes but still holds water? What is full of holes but still holds water? Maswali fupi fupi pale kwa SMS line at 21144. Now kama kawaida, we have a short art clip for you guys. Check this out.
I'm Lulu Amboy. I'm a visual artist as well as jewelry making.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did it come mkaanza sasa LM Creations?
It was his idea.
Oh, it was your idea?
Yeah.
Okay, alafu ukamuingiza. So ulianzaje ndo, first of all, LM inamaanisha nini?
Because I'm also a part-time art teacher.
Oh.
Nafanyanga, so I was looking for something easier. So that's why nilikwamia na resin.
Oh, and they're actually very beautiful.
Challenge.
Art yenyewe inani-inspire.
Inaku-inspire.
Yeah, nikiwa nafanya art kuna ile stand naonanga niko nayo. Hiyo ni inspiration moja inanipatia, inafanya inani-drive.
So nitaanza na Lulu. Okay. What is the best Wi-Fi name you've ever seen in your entire life? What is the weirdest thing you've ever seen a stranger do in public?
Hey.
Umeona mambo.
Everywhere, GBS. Welcome back and thank you for staying on board with us. You are watching The Ambassador, GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. Now checking on the matters of Israel and the Hamas conflicts. The Amos Hochstein, a senior advisor to the President Joe Biden, has emphasized that the critical need for diplomatic intervention to resolve the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza and the persistent violence in Lebanon. Hochstein, who has been in conducting the shuttle diplomacy between Lebanon and Israel for several months, warned that as tensions continue to rise and daily conflicts persist, the likelihood of accidents and mistakes increases, potentially leading to the unintended targets being struck and an escalation spiraling out of control. Our next story tells us the whole ordeal. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi encountered with Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in Cairo, that is on Wednesday, where they signaled a military cooperation protocol aimed at enhancing security and countering terrorism. During a press briefing, President El-Sisi expressed Egypt's commitment to supporting Somalia's stability and efforts against terrorism. This meeting follows a recent deadly attack in Somalia, highlighting the urgent need for strong security measures, with the new defense pact expected to strengthen collaborations between the two nations in combating terrorism and ensuring peace in the region. President Mohamud hailed the agreement as a significant step towards regional security and cooperation.
One of the outcomes of today's meeting, of which I'm very proud and committed to, is the new defense agreement signed between Somalia and Egypt in front of us today.
Now moving on, in a meeting on Tuesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin reaffirmed support for Palestinian state during discussions with the Palestinian Authority. President Mahmoud Abbas in Moscow. Putin expressed concerns over the humanitarian crisis in the Palestine and they reiterated Russia's unchanged position on achieving peace and Israel through United Nations resolutions. Abbas called for the international backing for the Palestine's UN membership and a peace conference to support a two-state solution.
Russia today, unfortunately, must defend its interest and defend its people with weapons in hand. But what is happening in the Middle East, what is happening in Palestine, of course, does not go unnoticed on our part. We have a very long-standing, deep ties with the Arab world in general, with Palestine in particular, and we value this very much. And of course, we are watching with great pain and anxiety the humanitarian catastrophe that has unfolded in Palestine. Our position here is unchanged. It was formulated a long time ago and does not have any opportunistic character. We believe that in order to ensure a long-term, reliable, stable peace in the region, it is necessary to implement all decisions of the United Nations and above all to create a fully fledged Palestinian state.
Now moving on to the matters of the United States, the White House has denied any United States role in Ukraine's Kursk offensive while reaffirming its support for Kiev against Russia. Press Secretary Jean-Karine Pierre stated that the U.S. was not engaged in the operation, while President Joe Biden acknowledged that the Kursk offensive created challenges for Putin. Ukraine now claims the territorial gains, but Russia dismisses these assertions while accusing Ukraine of targeting civilians. The White House maintained that it was not forewarned about the offensive, with experts noting that Ukraine may have surprised both Russia and some Western allies.
Better shape than it was when finally, more than 2 weeks after the elections in Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro has yet to come clean about the July 28 presidential election results. Yesterday, the UN panel of experts that was in Venezuela recently published their interim results. And I encourage you all to take a look at the report online when you have a moment. But I wanted to take this time to read one of their conclusions. The results management process of the CNE fell short of the basic transparency and integrity measures that are essential to holding credible elections. It did not follow national legal and regulatory provisions, and all stipulated deadlines were missed.
Losing faith with the ability of the United States to broker a ceasefire in Gaza.
In the experience of the panel, the announcement of an election outcome without a publication of its details or the release of tabulated results to candidates has no precedent in contemporary democratic elections. It is abundantly clear to the majority of the Venezuelan people, the United States, and a growing number of countries that the CNE has not provided full, detailed, tallied votes because they would show that Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia won the the vote. Maduro must recognize it and engage in a constructive, inclusive dialogue in good faith with the opposition to restore democratic norms peacefully in accordance with Venezuelan electoral law and the wishes of the people.
The Israel ambassador to the UN, the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, declared Israel as the most moral country in the world during his farewell address, defending its military actions against the ongoing criticism. His comments follows a recent strike on Gaza school that resulted in civilian casualties, with Palestinian officials condemning it as an indiscriminate. Erdan criticized the UN decision to place Israel on a blacklist for harming the children in the conflict, arguing of its promotion of terrorism and reflecting bias.
To the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm sure many of you were not aware or did not care to check, but today is Tisha B'Av, the saddest day on the Jewish calendar, our ancient day of mourning. We are fasting today for the many tragedies in Jewish history that occurred on this day, including the destruction of our first and second holy temples in Jerusalem. But let me be clear, Jerusalem will never fall again. Jerusalem, united Jerusalem, will never fall again. No matter how many times our enemies attempt to destroy us, no matter how many times the UN slanders us and distorts reality, we will stay in our homeland and we will prevail. Mr. President, Council members, in the early hours of October 17th, 2023, reports flooded from Hamas Ministry of Health of an Israeli airstrike on Al-Ahli Hospital. You probably remember it. Remember that day. These reports were then very quickly, parroted by UN officials, media outlets, and several governments. Not even 24 hours following these baseless claims, this council convened to discuss what was exposed to be a terrorist propaganda operation. As you probably remember, it was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket which fell on the hospital parking lot, not an Israeli missile. Fast forward 10 months, and nothing has changed. In the early hours of August 10th, 2024, the Gaza Ministry of Health, which the OCHA representative referenced while failing to mention it is in fact Hamas, has concocted a new blood libel. Once again, UN officials and media outlets were quick to echo this campaign of lies. I simply cannot comprehend that the United Nations Security Council would hold an emergency session based on jihadist propaganda. Once again, the Council falls for terrorist narratives, amplifying them and neglecting its obligations to the truth. Some in this chamber distort reality because of political interest, and we all understand the political interest. So I will set the record straight for all of you. On Saturday, August 10th, Israel targeted not a school, not an innocent school. We targeted dangerous terrorists operating in a Hamas command and control center within El Taba'in school. As usual, Hamas cynically abuses civilian facilities which should be protected as their terror bases. This strike eliminated at least 31 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists who carried out attacks from inside this compound. These vile terrorists included platoon commanders.
Now moving on to the matters of the United States, former President Donald Trump delivered a sharp critique of Vice President Kamala Harris during a rally in North Carolina, labeling her as not smart and warning that her potential victory could lead to a severe economic downturn, similar to the Great Depression of 1929. Trump linked Harris to the President Biden's administration, claiming that her policies would trigger Kamala's economic crash. He further highlighted the importance of economy for the voters and suggested that stock market's performance was tied to his election prospects. In addition to his economic warnings, Trump promised to cut energy prices and eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits if re-elected.
Nearly 4 years, Kamala has crackled as the American economy has burned. What happened to her laugh? I haven't heard that laugh in about a week. That's why they keep her off the stage. That's why she's disappeared. That's the laugh of a crazy person, I will tell you, if you haven't known it. It's a crazy. She's crazy. They told her, don't laugh, don't laugh. No, it's her. No, her laugh is career-threatening. They said don't laugh. She hasn't laughed. She doesn't laugh anymore. It's smart, but someday it's going to come out. That's the laugh of a person with some big problems. And we're disrespected all over the world as a country. We were respected before Putin respected us. President Xi of China respected us. Kim Jong-un of North Korea respected us. We were respected by everybody in the world. Today we're being laughed at. Today we're being laughed at all over the world. On Election Day, we're going to tell her that we've had enough, that we can't take it anymore, Kamala. You're doing a horrible job. You were a terrible attorney general. You were a terrible district attorney. You're the worst vice president in history. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. Go. Get out of here. Get her out. Boom. She truly is a radical. She's flip-flopping on everything to get elected. After she gets elected, it all goes right back to where it was. She refuses to do any interviews or press conferences. Almost 30 days now. She hasn't done an interview. You know why she hasn't done an interview? Because she's not smart. She's not intelligent. And we've gone through enough of that with this guy, Crooked Joe. He didn't do interviews either. They kept him in his basement, and essentially they're keeping her in the basement the same way they kept her. They don't want to expose her to, like, a question like, what did you have for dinner tonight? Remember, Joe, what kind of ice cream is your favorite? Vanilla. Oh, I like vanilla. Oh. If Harris wins this election, the result will be a Kamala economic crash, a 1929-style depression. 1929. When I win the election, we will immediately begin a brand new Trump economic boom. It'll be a boom. We're going to turn this country around so fast. For 4 years, Russia never went in to Ukraine. They waited till I got out, and then the army started to form. But you know, if you go back with Russia, Bush let them have a lot of land. You know that. Obama, President Barack Hussein Obama, have you heard of him? Barack Hussein Obama let them have a lot of land. Now you have Biden, he's letting them have the whole thing, okay? The whole thing. But you had President Trump. What did Putin take under Trump? Nothing. Nothing. Took nothing. He took nothing under Trump but Viktor Orban of Hungary. So they asked him, what do we do? Wars are breaking out all over the world. He said the answer is very simple. Make sure that Trump...
Call it the United States politics, and that international news brings us to the end of our ambassador, GBS Global. It's been wonderful having you on board, joining us to the very end. Here at the Ambassador, where we continue to bring you the latest updates and the global developments as you keep it locked with us. Have been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to meeting you here at the Ambassador tomorrow, same time, same place, at 1 p.m. I wish you all the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe and see you all tomorrow.